In today's rapidly changing manufacturing environment, companies and engineering professionals have to keep themselves abreast of the latest advancements in technology to maintain their competitiveness and professional competency in the shortest time possible. In such a dynamic environment, the need for real-time and forward-thinking training is crucial. To address this immediate needs, the A*STAR Singapore Institute of Manufacturing Technology, or SIMTech, and Skills Future Singapore have come together to provide relevant technology-based training for the manufacturing industry.
Singapore Institute of Manufacturing Technology, or SIMTech, is a public research institute under the Agency for Science, Technology and Research, or A*STAR. SIMTech's mission is to develop high-value manufacturing technologies and human capital to enhance the competitiveness of Singapore industry. Through a strategic collaboration with industry partners and R&D efforts over the years, SIMTech has generated in-depth knowledge and capabilities through over 300 industry projects annually. This know-how and experience allow our researchers to transfer and upgrade workforce skills aimed at productivity improvement and business transformation. In partnership with the Skills Future Singapore, SIMTech has been upskilling and reskilling the industry since 2008 through a wide range of industrial training programs under the Skills Framework using an innovative learn, practice and implement training model. Through more than 10 years of growth, we now train more than 1,000 professionals annually. This program helped the industry to be future-ready in today's technology workforce, where digital transformation has accelerated, and the key to adopting new technologies is through workforce reskilling and upskilling.
Other than delivering timely, case study-based curriculum, the Knowledge Transfer Office also provides hands-on practical training combined with industry best practices. Participants also have access to SIMTech's state-of-the-art labs to learn about the latest technological advancement to equip themselves with new skills. For example, WSQ Operation Management Innovation Program, or OMNI, which helps companies align process to company strategies and helps many companies to make significant improvement in operational productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness. The team has further developed the Digital Transformation and Innovation, or DTI program, to train and guide key personnel of organizations to be digital transformers in leveraging digital technologies to accelerate business model changes and achieve meaningful digital transformation. Using the DTI methodology, participants will learn to analyze and redesign your strategies, business model, value streams, and system architecture to ensure greater alignment, unlock new business growth, and achieve sustainable competitive advantage. As companies continue to benefit from SIMTech's unique courses and manufacturing expertise, the Knowledge Transfer Office at SIMTech is fast becoming recognized as Singapore's one-stop destination for manufacturing skills competency training by offering a wide range of courses and modules. The Knowledge Transfer Office helps industry in continuous education of their manufacturing professionals, managers, engineers, and technicians in the manufacturing sector. By collaborating with SSG, the Knowledge Transfer Office of SIMTech offers a number of SSG-certified WSQ courses, each designed to cater to the respective local industry sector.
I would like to congratulate all the SIMTech graduates for the successful completion of your training. Starting something is easy, seeing it through is difficult. So, I congratulate each of you for seizing the opportunity to learn and upgrade, and for persevering to the end. I'm confident that you have benefited from SIMTech's learn, practice, and implement approach, not just in updating your skill sets, but also in acquiring the mentality to continuously learn new skills, practice them, and then put them to good use in your profession and for your role in the workplace. Your successful graduation also gives us, at Skills Future Singapore, the confidence that our programs and partnerships have delivered value to you as individuals and to your companies. SSG will continue to partner SIMTech to deliver impactful and industry-relevant training and to equip our workforce with in-demand and emerging skills. So, congratulations once again. I wish you the very best in your careers, and I look forward to your contribution to our economy and to the uplifting of our advanced manufacturing sector.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on this Friday morning. Today, my name is Tong Chua. I'm the manager from the Technology Transfer Office from the Workforce Incubation Division. And I'll be our MC today, and I'll also be facilitating this session. Today's webinar is about automation assessment and adoption, and I'll be covering the course outlines and the course fees and then some training details before I hand over the session to Dr. Ling Wei. So this program, this is the exciting program we have. It's actually a 40-hour-long program. And we're talking about automation planning, assessment methods, how to identify alternatives, and of course, the definition of automation solutions. Well, if you are a production manager, engineer, or supervisor, this program is perfect for you. Well, if you are a system developer, this program will be applicable to you, especially for people in the precision engineering, electronics, aerospace, and food industries. Upon completion of this course, you'll be expected to receive a SOA, which is Statement of Attainment by SSG. This program is a qualification issued by the SkillsFuture Singapore, and it'll be tied to you. And of course, these are the important details for the programs. If you're Singapore citizens, you can expect to pay up to only $484, down from $4,000. That is 90% funding. However, if you are below age of 40 years old, you'll be slightly higher, about 30%. So you pay about $1,284. Or if you're sponsored by a company which is SME, you stand to enjoy the 90% funding. Right, so a little bit about KTO and who we are. We are part of Simtech, and Simtech is actually part of A*STAR. So we're up to 30 years of industry collaborations. We have multiple researchers within the industry, such as Dr. Ling Wei. We have helped more than 1,600 companies. Of course, we have multiple projects under our belts, and we generated revenue through all the researchers. Today, we have 9 SGUS programs, actually up to 70 training programs, and we train more than 5,000 people. And that's it I have for you today. I'll hand over the time to Dr. Ling Wei. Dr. Ling Wei, please. Dr. Ling Wei, your mute.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, nice to meet you all. Good morning to all. Yeah, let me share my slides. Okay, so actually my name is Ling Wei. Probably some of you know me. I'm a senior scientist with the division called the Advanced Automation Divisions. So in this maybe next 20 minutes or 25 minutes, so basically I will introduce the automation assessment adoptions methodology. Probably in the quite a few slides, I will start with some kind of motivations, right? So what actually we develop this so-called training course, right? And then I will talk a little bit more about the so-called the methodology, right? And then the approach that we have, and then how do we formulate this kind of methodology into a training course? Yeah, I'll give more detail about the training course itself. Okay, so first, this is the motivation. Basically, what we can see the industry, right, is that the need for automation, but for a lot of people for automation is that we want to improve the productivities. Basically, we want to introduce the digital manufacturing, right, where you can so-called aware of all this automation process, what's going on. And then all these so-called equipments are ready, available for operational, right, for all this kind of process. But you can see that a lot of company actually the process is highly manual, right? Where the process is quite complicated. It relies a lot of those skilled workers to do it. So if you don't have the tool, the equipment to do your process, like how do you actually make use of the digital technology, right, to improve your manufacturing process? So we feel that it's a big gaps, right, between a lot of those current processes, and then right, and then the so-called the digital manufacturing technologies. So how do we introduce this kind of automation? Basically, is by having this kind of physical kind of automations. But there's a challenge today, because the company, let's say that actually my process is quite complex, right? And then I involve a lot of those workers. I know that it's some kind of automation, but I don't know how to get started, right? What kind of automation technology actually has can make the biggest impact, right? So in the one hand, you have the processes involved. Maybe for your manufacturing certain products or repairing certain product, you involve different kind of process. You see that what a lot of area maybe I want to automate. And then on the other hand, there's a lot of those technology, for example, right? You have some kind of machine vision system, AI, robots, right? And then those things that we get from this internet, watch TVs. How do we link together, right? And then of course, the company are more focused on the operation, the process, right? They don't have the expertise, they don't have the time, right, to introduce they don't have the skill, basically, introduce the automations. And then we know that automation actually can do a lot of, can have a lot of benefits, right? From the product quality, right? So because automation, basically you have the consistency. And then, of course, if you have the right automation, you can improve the productivities, right? Basically, you can do repetitive kind of work, but if you don't have repetitive kind of works, if you have various kind of work piece, very kind of a batch, different kind of batch, how do you do the setup quickly, right? Is there such an automation technology, right, to do the changeover fast, right? So that you can improve the productivity for your challenging kind of process, such as high mix, low volume kind of operations. And then another benefit of automation, of course, is that it can lower the production cost, right? And overall production costs, but in the condition that you have to select the right automation, right? You don't want to have that kind of automation solution that is quite expensive to operate. Right. Of course, that's related to what kind of automation is suitable, right, to address to implement, right, to address the so-called process difficulties. And then, of course, there are others such as the production safety, right? If you can reduce the involvement of the humans in your process, right, and then maybe you can reduce the worker, and then maybe the worker operator can do something else. Maybe can do something more high values. Right. So these are the typical kind of automation benefits. Right. How do we actually identify the objective of these automations? That's one area. And then yeah, so why automation is difficult? Basically, as we know that there's a lot of automation, so-called technology solution available, but a lot of time there's no ready solution for my automation process, right? And then because the target process is quite complex, right? As I mentioned, you can have that kind of high mix, low volume kind of manufacturing, right? And then the parts that you deal with, it varies a lot in terms of the different types, in terms of the dimensions, sometimes also in terms of the consistency, right, in your parts, right? That made the automation very difficult, right? And then sometimes the parts are very large to handle, right, or too small to handle, right? That's another reason that automation is so difficult. And then a lot of time the process involves different kind of parameters. For example, you're talking about some kind of repair that you need to deal with, that kind of the the cutting, removing the parts, right? And then you need to basically patch up something. Maybe you use different kind of bonding technology, right? They involve different parameters, right? So that's what make the automation difficult. And then with various kind of things, sometimes you may know that maybe there's no suitable automation solution. Maybe there's some small gaps, right? You cannot find a solution. That's made automation difficult, right? Because you know, the automation, basically, if you're talking about the human, the robots and humans, there's a large gaps, right? So although some kind of humanoid can do the things, right? You have the machine vision, but the robots basically is one witness of this automation of today's robot is the kind of lack of those intelligence or decision making, right? You can only give them what they can only do the things that they have been programmed, they have been trained, right? Just like humans, basically. But of course, there's still a big gaps in terms of the decision making, the feasibility is the kind of area. So that's what I mean by not suitable automation solutions. Of course, you might think that there's a solution that you implemented, and then later on you find out actually that's not not so suitable. Maybe it can only deal with one particular workpiece. Later on, you change your batch size. Maybe you have difficulty. You have to reteach your automation systems. Okay, so what actually is a suitable? What is automation suitable? What is a suitable automation solution? Right. So one thing is that it's not that that every time you introduce some kind of automation, you have to develop the automation from scratch, right? That's a cost that involves a lot of those investment costs. That's one thing that's no. And then there are a lot of, as I mentioned, there are a lot of technology available, but what are they, right? So, and then how to determine if they are suitable, right? So basically, we need to deal with two areas. One thing is that what are the process that you are talking about, right? So whether there is any critical or hotspot area that actually that make the most critical that affect your objective, your automation objective. So how do we identify the process, right? How do we understand the process, which is very important, because if you don't understand your targeted process, you cannot find a suitable solution. So that's the first step, is that how do we understand our current process, right? And then later on, that once you understand the current process, and then another thing is that what are the possible kind of automation solution? What are the alternatives? There are so many different kind of automation alternatives, right? So you basically you have the problems of the different kind of process. You need to deal with different kind of criteria, and on the other hand, you have different kind of alternatives. Like how to identify, how to match one that you can have the most so-called suitable automation solution that address that particular hotspots. So that's the so-called methodology. What is the way to match these two? Just to give you an example, right? For example, let's say that we are dealing with this kind of a process, right? We need to produce some dishes in the restaurants, right? So to produce some dishes, basically you start with some kind of preparation for your ingredients, right? So and then later on you need to wash it, and then later on you need to cut it into the pieces you want, and then you need to cook it, right? In this case, maybe we do the stir frying, right? For this kind of cooking process, basically, right, you need to know that when do you so-called when do you so-called kind of loaded different kind of ingredients, right? And then when do you add the sauces? When do you add the salt? And then how do you control the fire? How do you move the wops, right? so this is the so-called stir frying. After that, you need to present it. So it involves different kind of so-called process steps. Then how do we identify the area which is the one that actually you can make make use the automation to address your objective. Probably the objective, of course, let's say that we want to, for this kind of case, it could be like, I want to have a consistency kind of dish, right? Consistent kind of taste, or you want to improve, let's say that improve the, reduce the productivity, reduce the so-called reliance on the operator or the cook, right? So you want to automation. So for this 4 process, which one is the one that actually you want to address? Obviously, right? For this case, is the stir frying. So then, how do we find the automation to do the stir frying, right? So this is a kind of approach, right? A general kind of approach that we do in this so-called finding the suitable solution, right? First of all, the first step is that okay, we identify the product. For example, for that case, is the stir frying dishes, right? Produce, and then you have to know that what kind of dishes that your restaurant want to produce, like how many dishes you want to produce, what's the variation. So you have to understand that, and then of course you have to know that what is the automation objective, right? To improve the taste or to or improve the productivity, or just space kind of restriction, because I want to reduce the size of my kitchen so that I can have more so-called the space in the sitting area, for example. Of course, probably you want more, but of course you have to identify what is the top so-called the objective. That's the top priorities among all this, because it will affect, later on it will affect what kind of automation that's best, that is the most suitable for the particular objective. And then in terms of identify the hotspot, then you have to list out all this kind of process. For example, the preparation, for example, washing, cutting, stir frying, right? And then through certain kind of criteria, we identify, okay, stir frying actually is the hotspot we want to address. Then what is the automation for stir frying? But even for stir frying itself, right, we have to understand it. Then how do we understand it? Then we use the methods called the decomposition. We decompose this kind of process, right, in terms of different kind of criteria, right? For stir frying, I think one thing basically is what kind of ingredient I'm talking about. If you're just talking about maybe a fried rice, right, and then the ingredient will be different, range of fried rice, right? Different kind of flavor, different kind of ingredient, versus maybe some certain kind of vegetable frying, right? So the ingredient could be a little bit different, right? So, and then also in terms of the tool that you use, right? In terms of for example, you use the wok, or is there the stirrer that you use, right? And then of course the third one will be the process. Like when do you add on different kind of process, a different kind of ingredient, right? How do you handle this kind of stuff? So these are the criteria that force us to understand the stir frying process, really what it's about. So another area basically we want to do is there an automation, different kind of automation alternatives, right, to address this stir frying technology, right? So what is the so-called the capabilities of each of these automation criteria? So we have serious kind of criteria for us to select. Eventually, right, through this kind of decision-making methods, then we can find out the automation hotspots. Okay, so what's the method of identify the automation alternative? One area is that we use this kind of the level of automation. What do you mean by level of automation? Because the automation is not always the full automation that you press a button, it just leaves the automation system to do the job. Sometimes some of this automation, maybe you need to involve certain level of human involvement, right? Maybe we can have a different kind of definitions for level of automations. From the first level, basically majority of the work is done by human, right? You just use a spade, you just walk, right? And then you can do the stir frying, right? And then towards that, maybe some kind of automations in terms of movement of the wok, right? You just add your ingredient at the right time and so on and so forth. And then up to maybe automation, full automation. That means that maybe the automation system suggest you what kind of ingredients is suitable, right? And then you have to, how do you load the ingredient in the right place? And then after that, the automation system can do the jobs, right? And then of course, this is just a one vertical, but of course, some kind of automation, they can also have, allow you to have a mass production, right? How do you link all this kind of station together? Maybe instead of just one wok, right? One stir frying station, you have a vertical stir frying station. So you can make use of the loading and unloading, one set of loading and unloading to do a few of them, right? And then again, it depends on your objective, depends on your the current process, or you want to plan for your process, expand your process in the future. So at the beginning of this automation assessment, so you have to ascertain that. So what is really your current needs and then your future needs, right? So that all this affect the automation selections. And then another area basically is a very so-called how do we so-called classify the automations is in terms of the hard automation, the flexibility to automation, right? Hard automation basically is usually is for those high volume kind of production, right? The variation is minimal, right? You don't need to have some kind of intelligence to adjust to the process, right? Adjust your handling for different kind of workpiece. We call it hard automation, right? And then to the and then next is basically you can program the automations, right? You can program this so that you can deal with a range of the process, range of the workpiece, right? And then towards the flexible automation, that basically is more closer to the kind of humans, right? You can make certain kind of decision making. So we can also these are various of approach that we identify the automation alternative. So after you identify all this kind of automation alternative, then you have to understand the capabilities, right? The criteria will be in terms of operabilities. For example, how easy to use. Let's say that if you definitely you need to start with some human involvement, right? So how easy to use, and then another thing is the functionalities, right? So what kind of function they can do, right? Does this automation system can include some kind of automated loading or automated unloading or some kind of thing, or some kind of automation whether you can actually program or sense the temperatures or things like that, right? So these are the functionality. And then efficiency, right? How does it actually do the things effectively, right? Basically, probably if some kind of, let's say the stir frying machine, if you can program the things very well, maybe you can have the shortest time and then give you the best, so-called the tasty kind of dishes, right? So is there some kind of a process, so-called optimization that it can do? And then of course the flexibility, like how easy to program to handle different kind of dishes, for example, and then and so on and so forth. So these are basically is the key capabilities for any of these so-called automation solution. It's not just for the stir frying machine that are listed out here. So these are the criteria that is applicable to quite a large range of so-called applications. And then for this, basically, we want to link this so-called for all these methods, right? We have the criteria, right? We have the decompositions. We have the criteria to describe this process. And then how do we link it? Is there a systematic methods to do it? So basically, we apply a methodology called the decision objective so-called solutions kind of approach. Eventually, we practice the method, you will give some kind of quantitative kind of suggestions, right? So which one actually is the most suitable for your process? For this case, I just use an example. Maybe it's a highly manual kind of process. That's one. Another is that kind of tumble fryer kind of process. Another is like robot chef, right? So eventually we go through all of them. Piecewise kind of comparison against all these so-called process criteria. Eventually, we can come up with some number that suggests that actually this one of these so-called method is most suitable, right? Because for a person without too much of the understanding, like how do we so-called understand the automation alternative, right? So we need to have a systematic method. So this method basically force the people, right, to come out, to follow this process. Eventually, we will come out with quite a robust kind of result, right? Maybe different team, right? If we prove that different team maybe use the method, always come out with a similar kind of result, right? And then it just shows that actually the methodology is quite robust, right? So I just showed that this is just an example. For example, eventually we recommend certain process, right? If you use automation, basically, if you're just doing certain so-called limited kind of dishes, right? Just fried rice, right? Then you don't need to have a robot to do all this kind of stir frying process, right? Okay, so now we move on to this so-called the training course, right? So we divided basically into four divided into four so-called the topics. The first one is basically is that to know that what is the company's objective, and then to know your process very well, right? And then what actually the work piece or the operation that you want. And then the second is that identify the hotspot, right? Which one is the one that you want to deal with, for example, stir frying, right? And then we move on. Okay, before that, basically we want to understand the hotspot very well. Then we need to do the process decompositions, right? What are the criteria to describe your process, describe your stir frying process, right? And then we move on to this automation alternative, right? So we say that this kind of process, what are the automation solutions? What are the possible kind of automation solutions that's available, right? So we list maybe quite a few of them, right? And then we describe this alternative in terms of different kind of capabilities, right? Then we use this kind of so-called decision-making methods, right, to come up with hopefully it's a quantitative kind of result. So actually for address this kind of hotspot, right, we alternative, one of these solution alternatives is most suitable. So once we identify that, maybe you still need to go through the, right, whether this is so-called alternative, what could be the implementation, right? Consideration in terms of the cost, in terms of what, is there any gaps in there? Is there any so-called the area that maybe you need certain development? So these are the things that we need to consider, right? So then we reroute back. Is this decision making with the methodology, with the systematic approach, we come up with some system, but we still need to review it, right? See whether this is suitable. So this is the four so-called the tasks that we go through this kind of training. But of course, the training is involved a lot of those practice, right? So usually when we start, we have to identify what kind of process that we want to deal with, because we really want to use certain case, right? We will be good at if it's a real case, right? We can go through it, right? So and then at the same time we teach this so-called methods, right? Teach this kind of theories, right? And then we use the real case to practice it. Okay, so this is a kind of slide I can talk about later. Okay, so this is yeah, basically this is the second last slide. Basically, I think it's just a kind of remarks. So basically, this method is a kind of supported decision making, right? This is the method that if we practice it, it can apply to a wide range of operation and process, right? And then with that, basically, is that we help the company to understand their process better, right? But identify what's the hotspot. But through this kind of process, actually, you can rethink that actually my process is that process have room to do some kind of improvement, right? Before your automation, that's also possible. And then another thing very important about this method is that it's a kind of the team is very important, right? Where you need to involve certain people that is very know the process very well. Yeah, automation, production process very well. And then another set of people probably they know the automation very well, right? So the teamwork is quite important. But of course, through this kind of trainers we have, right? The trainers have a lot of experience in deal with develop or implement the automation solutions, right? And then the trainer actually have going to use the method to apply quite a few bit of this process to solve the industrial problem already, right? We also have conducted the course a few times already, and then actually we throughout this kind of so-called process, so-called the delivery, right? We improve basically is the training, the delivery methods that we have, right? So these are the things that we think that is quite important. You have to have this kind of right mix kind of people, right? In order to have the objective or identify the automation solutions. Okay, so for this course, I think this Thomas already mentioned, basically this is 40 hours, right? And then in terms of classrooms, right, the preparation for this course is about 5 sessions. And then basically we have to go to the workshop, right, and then use the real case, right, to practice our methodologies. And then eventually we will have 1 session on the assessment. Basically, this is SSG accredited kind of course, right? So we have to have some kind of assessment, right? Yeah, and then actually this course actually we developed this basically is because I mentioned that it's for companies basically, right? So if it's a corporate class, right? So we need to have a fair size of this class, right? In order to have that kind of effective trainings. So this is just not just for the corporate class. So if an individual interested in this area, we can also have that kind of so-called public kind of class. Okay, I think that's all I want to share. So for more information, actually, I have this QR code, right? So you can get more information from our website. Of course, you're welcome to contact us, whether Chita and myself. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So if you have any question, yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Ling Wei, for the very informative sharing. So right now, I'd actually like to open the session to a Q&A session. So any of the participants, if you wish ask any questions, you can either raise your hand, I'll unmute you, or you could type into the Q&A box at the bottom and share with us, so you can respond to any questions you may have about the program. I don't know whether it's about whether this public training is applicable to your workplace, or you want to find out more about the programs, or about funding details. I can be of help too. So feel free to ask us any questions, and Dr. Ling Wei will be here to actually answer any questions you may have. At the same time, I'll be actually launching a poll to find out whether you're interested in this program and whether we can provide you with more information. So do take some time to fill in the poll, please.
There's a participant that put up their hand.
Okay. I believe it's Chris Ang. So I'll actually allow you to speak. Chris Ang, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I think pretty much Dr. Lin has addressed all the automation issue as much as I think I understand every aspect that he mentioned, and it's pretty much too close to what we've been doing for the past 30 years. And I have been in the automation line for almost 30 years here and there. So yeah, now the thing is that latest automation as of today, we're talking about integration of AI, which consists of machine learning language as well as deep learning language, with camera vision integrated into the automation system nowadays. So that what Dr. Lin's addressed about hard automation do not consist of all this AI quality, which nowadays customer is looking for this kind of quality to let the automation do the decision making instead of doing a repetitive job. So the idea of having automation in future is not just doing repetitive job, but to take over actually human being with some kind of intelligence to decide certain things, that to sort out things that is okay or not okay, good and no good parts, and involve inspection. After inspection, actually involve about sorting them, and after that sorting them, actually even give a report of the inspection analysis of certain parts that they have sorted out. Yeah. So it's a very interesting course, but I'm looking for even better cost than that, more advanced. In future, let's say Dr. Lin is able to come up with a more advanced course that we can attend on top of what he has mentioned. I would very much like to get in touch with him and get connected with him in future. I think it's a great presentation as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. let me clarify. Basically, I agree totally with this, Chris, right? And then in terms of like the automation, today's automation is more involved AI, and then involves some kind of machine vision, involves some kind of sensors. Let's say that if the companies want to introduce these things to stir frying, for example, like if this kind of technology will be very useful, right? So if some kind of dish, right, instead of you get the experience of cook to produce a very high taste kind of food, if you can have a sensor to sense it, if you have some kind of dishes that can consistently produce. But before you introduce machine vision to check, I just use that example. I'm not saying that actually my course is more stir frying, my course is selling this hard automation. No, it's not, right? Basically, it's that you want to introduce this kind of intelligence into your system. You need to have some kind of platform to basically produce this kind of things automatically. What I'm saying is that, let's say that your objective is introduce your AI, because the AI basically you're saying that actually can improve your taste. You have to have a consistency kind of output where you put the sensors, for example, right? What is the automation to handle this kind of a product so that you can all link out together? But if your current process is only manual, right? You say, I'll give you a machine vision, give you an AI. I don't think you can jump to that position. So you have to have that kind of mechanization, robots introduced, fixed kind of things introduced so that you can produce these things consistently, right? So that's why, see that I don't have any so-called a disagreement with you, but I just want to emphasize that this course is regarding select the right automation. It's not pushing for hard automation or pushing for any so-called old automation. If you visit a lot of companies, basically they still, for example, Hynix low volume repair. It's highly manual, right? They want to have the right automation. First of all, is there such a robot to deal with it, right? Later on, I can introduce my Industry 4.0, I can introduce my kind of sensing so that I can have awareness of my production. But before that, I have to introduce some certain kind of physical kind of automation. In terms of physical automation, you have hard automation, you have flexible automation, you have the so-called soft automations, right? And then you have different kind of automation alternative. So which one is the right one for you to introduce the kind of intelligence there? Right. So that's why I want to emphasize. I'm not saying that I am selling the old automation. No, actually, I found out there's a gap because a lot of companies actually approach us. This kind of process, I cannot find the solutions, right? They are not us. Of course, if certain company, they already have this kind of robot introduced, they want to go to the next steps, have certain intelligence, right? AI, machine vision. Yeah, there's such a requirements also. Right. But a lot of companies, before they move to that stage, they want to have certain kind of platform ready for that. So I just want to make myself clear. No, definitely it's not. I just use the example or a recommendation, how automation. I just use that example. We did it in our past projects. No, I'm not selling hard automation. Yeah. Hopefully, I want to make this so-called presentation clearer.
Yeah, it's okay.
So Chris, we will contact you to maybe set up a meeting to have a more detailed discussion with you.
Yeah,
Thanks for
I'm looking for like industrial automation rather than the domestic automation like cooking. You know, of course, cooking.
No. I think you're getting me wrong again. I just used that example because in my first slides, I list out the automation in terms of the. For example, you're talking about this prefab, right? Now we push for prefab construction. I just use that example. Even you go to the prefab, some of the process is still done manually. For example, you want to make those so-called the rebar cage, for example, right? Although you have some kind of automation line to handle all these kind of panels, right? But they still have certain process you did it manually, right? Is there automation alternative? That's manufacturing. For example, you go to the aerospace, a lot of companies are MRO, right? And then they need to do things, for example, to repair, right? Repair the composite, whatever. They have to do it manually. Why? Because there's some kind of automation. This is still not able to deal with that kind of so-called the challenging kind of process. There's a lot of so-called opportunities there. There's a lot of needs there, right? Not just all AI, machine vision, but before that, you need to fill out this gap first, right? So what I'm saying is that not just the stir-frying logistics, because I just used the example, unfortunately, in this presentation. And this presentation definitely is not about stir-frying, it's not about hard automation. This process, it's about what kind of systematic method I can deal with a large range kind of application in all kinds of sectors, right? Not just the service, but also manufacturing. Actually, we come from manufacturing. We know the manufacturing very well. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I got you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ling Wei. Thank you, Chris, for your questions. Is there anyone else that has any questions or doubts that you would like to clear with Dr. Ling Wei or the team here? Again, feel free to type your questions into the chat box and the Q&A box. If you wish to speak, you just need to raise your hands and I can turn on your mic for you. Let me just give another 1-2 minutes.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we have a corporate class. If we have a corporate, actually, that we are ongoing. There's some corporate class, and then if individual want to learn this kind of method, right? You want to say that I'm very experienced in automation, but is there any systematic method that I can apply, right? In this so-called identify or the automation solution, probably, yeah, you also found it suitable for this course, suitable for you.
Yep. That's right. We can actually do corporate classes for you, and we can actually adjust the content to your industry's needs or to your company's based on the available case studies. So feel free to reach out to us if you're interested to run a corporate class. For corporate class, of course, the funding will still apply, assuming that most of the participants are Singaporeans or your SME. Okay, I think if there's no more further questions, I think I can call this webinar to an end. Cheetah or Charlotte, you have anything else to add?
No. So I think I just want to reiterate that this particular program, right, is sort of highly subsidized by SkillsFuture Singapore, and then it's applicable for company to take it up as a corporate. So if form a class of 8 to 10%, we can already customize and then look at your problem statement. It will be a learn, practice, implement kind of a program together with the company. Yeah, thanks for your time to participate in this webinar. Thank you.
Right. So thank you, everyone. We'll have a very good Friday and a weekend ahead. We hope to see you at our next webinar. Right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.